Welcome, fearless viewers, to another chilling tale from our realm of horror. Tonight, we delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche, where shadows lurk and fear reigns supreme. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join our growing community of horror enthusiasts. Help us reach our next milestone of 700 subscribers, as we continue to uncover spine-tingling stories that will haunt your dreams. Now, brace yourself, as the journey into the unknown begins. This happened to me yesterday. I was attending a concert with my twin sister, who was 19, and my older sister, who was 24. The concert was in Los Angeles, California, at the Echoplex venue. To give some context about the location, Echoplex venue is located right by a place called Skid Row. This area is full of homeless people and drug addicts, and is not in the best location. Since the concert was located in a bad area, my protective mom drove us there. She also brought a taser and pepper spray with her just in case something happened. I will later explain how this is relevant to the story. The concert was supposed to start at 7, and there were no assigned seats, just standing remotely. So my sisters and I wanted to get there at least 3 hours before to wait in line so we could get the best spots to stand at. To describe the layout of the venue. The entrance of the venue was located in an alleyway. It was pretty evident that we were the first fans there. So we got there through the alley and pulled up to the entrance. And that's one of the security guards, where they wanted us to start the line. He told us that he wanted us to start the line on the sidewalk and pointed to the entrance of the alleyway. We made our way there. And we knew we would be waiting for a while. So we brought line chairs and set them up along the sidewalk. My mom, being street smart and overly protective, did not want to drop us off and leave. So she stayed in line and waited with my sisters, and we were sitting along the small brick wall just outside of the alleyway. I turned to my left, and there was a tattoo parlor with a table and chairs in the front. Half an hour passed, and a handful of fans arrived to wait in line as well. Now remember, we're in California, and the weather gets warm. We knew that smaller concert venues can get packed and create a lot of body heat. So my sisters and I were wearing jean shorts. This is also relevant to the story. After waiting a while, I looked towards my left, where the tables were in front of the tattoo parlor. I noticed the short, heavy man wearing a hat staring right where me and my sisters were sitting. It creeped me out a little bit, but I decided to try to ignore it. About 20 minutes later, a skinny man with black curly hair sat right next to the short guy with the hat. I noticed that the skinny man with curly hair was under the influence of drugs. The two men did not say anything to each other, but looked like they could be related. This made me more aware, and I turned to my sisters and warned them, saying, "Be careful with these two guys at the table. They seem suspicious." I tried looking forward to the concert. But I was terrified as I noticed that now the skinny man was starting to look at me from the table. He began to walk past the entrance of the alleyway and right past us a couple of times. And every time he passed by, I held my breath out of fear. Even the short guy with the hat would get up from his seat occasionally and stand right by us and was talking with someone on the phone. It became so evident that they both had their eye on us that we kept a close eye and remained cautious. We had 1 more hour before the doors of the venue open, when the skinny man walked right past us. He stopped and stood in front of my older sister. After he was done staring at her, he then moved on to me. He stood right in front of me and began rubbing his stomach and making the noises if he was eating, and was directly staring at my legs. I was disgusted and felt violated. It was like he was eating me with his eyes. And I wanted to scream at him and cuss him out. But remember, my chair was against the wall, so I couldn't back up. I did not freeze out of fear, but my mind was racing. I was trying to think of what to do. Do I kick him? Do I get up? I know that people who are under the influence can be reactive to sudden movements. So I decided to stay still. It was like a scene from Jurassic Park. And I had to stay still, so the T-Rex wouldn't attack me. My mom was standing right next to me and clutching the taser ready to zap, and she kept telling him to stop looking at her and back up. This made me feel a little more safe. But what was alarming was he was still not leaving after my mom's multiple warnings. Finally, my mom yelled for security. And he quickly left and retreated to the tables in front of the tattoo parlor that was not that far away from where the short man was still sitting. After going to the tables, he was still staring at me with a big smile. When I told my mom that he was still staring, she looked right at him. And his eyes changed from my direction to my mom's. His expression changed from smiling to now angry and the look of hate towards my mom because she got in his way. If you're wondering why no one in line helped us, most of the people who are in line with females who were just as scared as we were. The males in line froze, and when we told security about it, they said they couldn't do anything. That was because the line was outside of the venue and they require only protect the inside of the venue. The girls behind us in line told us that as the man retreated back to the table, he noticed that my mom turned her back for a second. When she was turning her back, she joked with us how she was ready to zap him. Not even 5 minutes after the incident, the short chubby man with the hat asked one of the employees of the venue what time the event ended. After that, he left without the skinny man. This terrified me because he didn't know anyone who was going to the concert, and he didn't have a ticket. So why would he be asking that? I told my mom that I heard the short man as the employee, and she told me that she would be waiting right outside the venue for us, and to text her before leaving. Finally, it was time for the concert to start and the doors were open. As my sisters and I were walking through the alley to get to the doors, my mom later told me that the skinny man and short man was smiling, watching us walk in. We finally got inside the venue. And the thought and fear of the men stayed in the back of my head for a while. But eventually I forgot about it and was able to enjoy my time at the concert. My mom texted my sister and told her that she called my uncle, who's a correctional officer. She told him what happened earlier, and he was upset and decided to make the 1-hour drive and wait right outside the venue for us with my mom. This made us feel a lot more safe. When the concert finally ended, we began to walk out of the venue. And I saw my mom and uncle waiting right outside. When I looked past him, I saw the same car. The short chubby man was right in the front now, filled with a lot of men in the back seat just waiting. My mom and uncle told us to walk in the other direction from the car. And so we did. Thankfully, we made it to the car safely and drove home. I don't know what the two men's exact intentions were. But all I know is it was not good. I'm just glad that we made it out safely. A few years back, I went to a concert with my best friend Paige. Paige and I were going to see one of our favorite bands perform live. We had planned to go almost a month in advance. The concert was at a location in the city. And quite a few other people were going as well. I remember that because it was downtown, parking was a little bit hard to come by. We found a really cheap lot. But the problem was that it was kind of far away from the venue. Parking close by was either not available or super expensive. We didn't mind walking at all. And we even got there pretty early. After we parked, I remember that we were going to go on the sidewalk. And this area was pretty quiet. There were not many other people around. But these two guys were sort of walking near us. We didn't make it more than 10 feet when they approached us and asked if we wanted them to take us closer. They said they could give us a ride. We said no thanks, because we really weren't interested. I remember the guys kept asking if we were sure, and said that they could do it for free. But we still said no. At that point, it seemed sort of sketchy. So eventually they stopped talking to us, and we continued to walk. It took maybe 20 minutes to walk to the concert. And when we got close, things were much busier. Then we went inside, and we're at the concert for the next several hours. When the concert was done, it was now later at night, probably about 11 o'clock. We walked back the same way that we had got there. And at first, the sidewalks were packed. But soon they got quieter and quieter. By the time we got within a couple of blocks of our car, there was almost nobody around at all. The area was also much darker, with less street lamps. Pretty soon though, the parking lot with Paige's car was inside. There was a lot that was outside and fenced in, but not that secure. You could easily walk right over the fence. There was probably only about 10 cars in this parking lot. Right when we made it into the parking lot and were entering, the same two guys were there. They once more approached us in the parking lot and asked us if we needed a ride. We said no. We drove and pointed to the car that we took. I remember that the guys were still trying to get us to go in their car with them. We started walking away and they followed us. I told them to leave us alone, but they did not. That's when Paige threatened to call the police. At this point, they finally backed off and acted like they had done nothing wrong. They were surprised that Paige would suggest such a thing. We got inside of your car and started to drive away. But right when we left the parking lot, we saw really bright headlights of a car behind us. It was the two guys who were trying to get us to go with them. When we left, they followed us out and they followed us out of the city entirely as well. They kept flashing their brights on and off, which was really annoying. At first, Paige took a couple of random turns to try to lose them. Then she just started driving back. We weren't really sure what to do about it. After following us for probably 15 minutes though, they finally turned and left us alone. I'm not sure what those guys were trying to do. I'm really happy that they stopped following us though. I remember I had a really memorable experience several years ago. I was 18 at the time, and my little sister was 15. She went to a concert with friends, and my parents told me that I had to give her a ride home. The concert was in the city, and it was a little over 10 minutes away from where we live. Not sure if it was Justin Bieber or Taylor Swift or what, but there was like a million people there. So I drove down to the city and ended up getting really lucky to find a parking spot on the side of the street. I parallel parked just a couple of blocks away from the concert venue. It was sometime at night. And I think the concert was supposed to be ending shortly. So I texted my sister and let her know where I was. Meanwhile, the street and sidewalks were pretty quiet. I was guessing it would be chaos after the concert. So I really hoped that my sister would leave right away. As I sat there, I turned my headlights off and then just went on my phone. Probably 10 minutes into this, I remember hearing footsteps outside of my car. I figured that it was just somebody walking down the sidewalk. But I looked up and saw a guy approaching from behind and go right up to my window. Then he knocked on it. I rolled the window down a little bit and asked the guy what he wanted. I was afraid that maybe he was a parking cop and was telling me that I couldn't be here or something. But the guy just asked me if I could get out and help him. I asked him what he needed help with. But he didn't say, he just told me that he would show me. This guy seemed sort of suspicious. I told him I couldn't because I was waiting for my sister and I had to pick her up. He kept asking me, and I told him no again. At that point, the man actually walked away. He went towards the back of my car and then went up back on the sidewalk. But he didn't keep walking away any farther. He just stood around on the sidewalk only like 20 feet away from me. Then I watched him take out a cigarette and start smoking. I kept waiting for my sister. Several minutes went by. And this guy was still just standing there. More he was standing there was making me uncomfortable. Like I just knew that he was going to approach me again. I would say another couple minutes after this, I got a text from my sisters saying that she was leaving. Now, at around the same time, I saw the guy in my mirror starting to approach again. The guy walked up and then tried opening my back door to my car, which was locked. Then he came over to my window and started aggressively banging on it. I didn't roll it down this time. I could hear the man starting to yell at me to open the window and let him in. I ignored it entirely. Demand continued and kept trying to get me to open my driver's door. Even started kicking at the door with his feet. He continued, he probably would have put some dents in the car. But at that point, I put it in drive and pulled away. I went down the street and went straight to the concert venue. It was a basketball arena. And I called my sister and then circled the stadium until she made it outside. I briefly pulled over when she was by the end, she got it. Then I headed home. But unfortunately, because I was so close to the arena, traffic was really bad. We were in a standstill for a while. People were honking and stuff. And we were barely moving. After sitting in traffic for probably 20 minutes. We had made it a little ways and were almost out of downtown. In that time, I remember looking around and seeing the same guy. He was walking down a sidewalk. And the crazy thing is that right when I looked over about a second later, he looked over at me. Our eyes locked for just a moment and then he started walking over. I couldn't go anywhere because of the traffic. The guy walked off the sidewalk and into the road and right up to my window. Once again, he started banging on it and stuff. I started honking and a bunch of other people were honking too after like 10 seconds of this. He finally walked away again. Within 5 more minutes, probably we had made it back onto the highway. We're out of traffic. Luckily, we made it back home okay, and my car had no noticeable damage. Looking back, I don't know what that guy's problem with me was. It's so crazy how he saw me again and then went out into the street to attack my car.